see if we can. Okay. Now, when we first started our series of how to learn, I showed you this little document that I wrote, and it says that the following. Our rabbis teach us that when Hashem wanted to create the universe, he looked into the Torah and created the world. That's from the Zohar. So this means that all the information about all creation is somehow found in the Torah, correct? Because the Torah was the blueprint that he used to create the reality that we see around us. Now, the question is, how could all that information be found in just 304,840 letters of the Torah? So the answer is that the Torah is a highly compressed document whose information is encoded by various visual, audio, and intellectual methods. And in the rest of the article, I explain many of the different systems that are used in order to compress information. The first one that I gave as an example is a zip file, right? You have a whole bunch of text like AADDD, and you can compress it by saying 4A and 7D. Okay, so there's compression analogs which are applied to text, and then they can get rid of spaces and extraneous letters and compress a large file. Of course, it even got more sophisticated when it came into video and things like that. But what's interesting to note is that all of creation can be looked at through the Torah. The Torah is the blueprint of all of creation. And here we have Moshe Rabbeinu getting the Torah. We're coming up to Shavuos in a few days. V'yoma Hashem al Moshe. So Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Alai alai hahar v'hayasham, come up to the mountain and stand there. Ve'etnenu lecha, and I will give you et lucha sa'evan, the two stones of the Ten Commandments, v'hatorah v'mitzvahs, asher katafti l'horasam, which I have written in order to teach the people. Rashi says, Kol sheish ma'os u'shlosha esrei mitzvahs bichlal eseres hadibros. The highest compression formula is the 10 statements of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. There, because it says, I'm going to give you the Evan, that's the 10 Commandments, okay, and in that will be compressed the Torah, the Mitzvah. Rashi learns. In those words of the 10 Commandments, you will find in a compressed form all the 613 mitzvahs. Amazing, amazing. The Rambam learns the pasuk, and in his Mishnah Torah he writes, "Kol mitzvah shenat lo Moshe Rabbeinu, pirushan notno." All the mitzvahs that were given to Moshe Rabbeinu were not only given the mitzvahs, but all what I like to call the parameters of each one of the mitzvahs were given. The exact time, place, location, position, all the various details of how to do that mitzvahs were given to Moshe Rabbeinu. Shenema v'etnenocha et luchos ha'eben. I'm going to give you the luchos of the 10 Commandments. V'hatorah v'hamitzvahs. And so the Rambam learns Torah, zu Torah shebichtav. That's the written Torah that we have, and the mitzvahs zu perushoha. The mitzvahs mean the explanation of the written law. V'tzivonu lasos haTorah al peh. V'tzivonu lasos haTorah al pi mitzvahs, and we have to do the Torah according to these mitzvahs. So we have to do the mitzvahs that are outlined in the Torah according to the Torah Shabbat Peh. So now today I wanted to show you another method of compression, okay, where you have a lot of data and you want to compress it, okay. So we looked at the first mitzvah, the first Mishnah in Baba Kama. And there it gave us again a general rule and then describe the rule in detail. Okay, now one of the ways we compress things is by combining a lot of details into one general rule, a category. Okay, so once I have a category, then I don't have to spell out each one of the little details or plot them in the category. I just have to tell you what's the law of the category, and by definition, all the subsets of that category will have the same law. So here we had our Arba Avos Nezikin. There's the four principal categories of Nezikin: the Shor, the Bor, the Mav, and the Hever. And then the Mishnah goes on to say that the Shor is not like the Mava, and the Mav is not like the Shor. Okay? Now, which means that, and we learned this previously, that if the Torah would have only written the mitzvah of watching and subsequently paying for damages that may have happened, if it only wrote that mitzvah with shor, then I would not be able to derive maba from it. Why? Because I would say shor is more chomer. It has more stringency. Now, in the laws of kal v'chomer, you can learn from the kal to the chomer, but you can't learn from the chomer from the chomer to the kal. And we said it's in the positive, not in the negative, in the positive. So, for instance, the Kohen Gadol has to marry a virgin, right? What about a regular Kohen or Yisrael and the Levi? Do they have to marry a virgin? So the answer is you cannot go from top down in such a case. In the positive of the Kohen Gadol cannot be extended downward. Okay, it can the negatives of the yeah. Let's say just let me just think 1 second. Yeah. Good. Okay. So if the more Chomer case, which is the Kohen Gadol, has to marry a basula, that means that's the cutoff point. Anything less than the Kohen Gadol does not have to. Okay. So here, if the Torah only would have written shor, for instance, we would have said that's like the Kohen Gadol. It has certain qualities that make it more stringent than the Mava, and therefore I would not have derived through a Binyanav or a Kalachom in the other cases. Okay, is that clear? We've spoken about that quite a lot. The Torah talks about a cutoff point. Anything that's equal to and greater than more Chomer always has the law, but things that are less than the cutoff point, then they do not have the law. So the Mishnah is saying, why do we need 4 cases? Because if I would have written shor, the Shem would have written shor, then I could not derive the Mavot from it. And the Mishnah also talks about the converse. Below Hamamaba Kahar Shor. And if the converse also, if the Torah would have written Mava, either that means Shane or that means Adam, then I could not derive the shor from it. Okay. Then the Mishnah goes on and says, let's take 2 of these variables. Let's take the shor and the mava, and let's see if we could, through a tzad hashava, a combination of those 2, derive the aish, for instance. So the Mishnah says, no, you'll be unsuccessful because there's a higher common denominator in the shor and the mava called ruach chayim. They're living things. And since an aish doesn't have ruach chayim, I would not be able to derive the aish from those 2, and therefore the Torah had to write aish. Well, let's try now 3 of them. Let's say we had shor, bor, and mava, and I want to write bor. So again, it won't work because all those 3 items have a higher LCD called dark and later chazik. They move to do damage, and the shor is passive. So I would not be able to learn the shor. Okay. Now the question is, are these the own? There's 3 relationships here. There's a 1-to-1 relationship, a 2-to-1 relationship, and a 3-to-1 relationship. And the question is, are these exclusive or not? Okay. So here in my other little chart here. Let's see, let's get to my other chart here, and then we'll get into, okay. So now, we're going to now talk about in our piece, we're up to 9b in the Gemara already, and now we're going to bring a Beraisa, which is going to talk about the chumras that each one of these items have over the other. Okay, so we'll have 3 items of the 4. Interesting, Mav is not mentioned, but 3 of the 4 items, and we're going to show that there is a chumrah in each one of them that would not be present in the other one, and therefore, if that one was written, the other one would not be written. So let's go here to our diagram here, and let's look at the text itself, okay? Let's look at the text itself. Okay, but I'm going to do it from my text because it's a little bit more complete here. Okay. So I hope you can see this little document here. So we have here, this is a Beraisa. The next piece in our Gemara, and the Beraisa says the following: Chumra b'shor mi b'bor, v'chumra mi bor mi b'shor. There's a stringency in the shore that the bor doesn't have, and there's a stringency in the bor that the shore doesn't have. So it gave the statement as converse, just like in our Mishnah. But since it's a Beraisa now, it's going to explain that statement in the Mishnah. It just doesn't leave it that way. Remember, in Yehuda Anasi, all the Mishnayos were Baal Peh. They were not supposed to be written down, but he saw, because of all the problems of Klal Yisrael, destruction of the temple and so forth, and that if he didn't write down the Torah Shel Baal Peh, it would be lost, chas v'shalom. So he wrote down the absolute minimum that he could, and he expected that the Talmidim would be able to keep in their heads all the Torah Shel Baal Peh that fall in between the spaces of what he had written down in his text. Okay, unfortunately, things degenerated, and his students were Rav Ashi, Rav Ashi. They gathered together all those external texts and put it together in what we call in the Gemara the Beraisas. Beraisas means outside texts, okay? Now, these texts are used to explain the Mishnah, okay? So here you see a very interesting and clear example. The Beraisa quotes the first line in our Mishnah, but our Mishnah said, Lo hari ashur kahari amavre, lo amavre kahari ashur. Very interesting that Beraisa skips mava and goes from shore to bor. Are you with me? The four Nezikin were shore, bor, mava, and hever. Our Mishnah skipped mava and said, Lo hari, excuse me. No, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Let me do that again, okay? Oops, where am I? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes, I'm here. I was right. Lower Ashur Kahari Amava. That's what our Mishnah said, right? Our Mishnah said that there's a shore, bor, the mav, and the hever, correct? The shore, the bor, the mav, and the hever. This Beraisa leaves out mava. Very interesting. It leaves out mava, number one. Number two, it goes in the order of the shore, bor, and the hever. And it says the shore is not like the bor. Are you with me what I just did, or I went too fast? Here's our Mishnah, shore, bor, mav, and hever. The Beraisa that we're going to discuss does not have mava in it. It only has shore, bor, and hever, number one. You with me? And number two, Whereas our Mishnah said, Lo hari ashor hari amava, lo hari amavik hari ashor, the Beraisa starts with the shore and the bore and says, Lo hari ashor hari abor, lo hari abor hari ashor. Are you with me, Yehuda, on that? You see that difference? Okay. So all these subtle differences between the two texts have to be studied. Okay. We don't have the time at the present format to do that. But I always tell people you have to be an observant Jew. The good science and good Torah learning comes from proper observation. If your observation is not good, then your conclusions are not good. And the same thing happens in Torah. You have to have careful observation, and through the observation, you can now go deeper into the deeper meaning of the text. Okay, but the first thing is you have to be an observer. You have to observe. So we just made these observations. Okay, now the Beraisa now is going to tell us that the shore is not like the bore, and the bore is not like the mop. Okay, so let's go back to that. I mean, the shore is not like the bore, and the bore is not like the shore. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's read the Beraisa together. Okay, there's a chumrah in shore more than bore, meaning if the Torah only would have written shore, since it has a chumrah, it's like the Kohen Gadol, I would say that's the one that's chayav to pay for damages, and the lower one, the bore, would not have to pay. Okay, so the Beraisa now is going to spell it out. What are the chumras? What makes shore more strict than bore? Well, first of all, the shore pays something called kofar. Okay, we learned back in the first opening of our classes, we looked at Shemos 22 and 23, where it speaks about all these four avos. And we saw there that a shore that kills a person has to pay kofar. Okay, on the fourth time, he has to pay kofar. What's kofar? A monetary recompensation for the person. Of course, the person has no value, but the way we normally do it is we just see what this person did and how much he would make, and that has to be given to as kofar. Okay.
Is kofar also considered a penalty? Is that actually? Because we always say kofar is kapora. You're actually repenting for the mistake you made, but isn't it also a penalty? Because it's not just compensation per se, right? Because we can't, because then it would be just nezek shalem, right?
Okay, you're right. So the laws of kofar, I must admit, I'm not involved in at this point. We'll have to look it up and get back exactly all those laws. But definitely one thing is the shore only pays kofar. You can get out of it. I mean, if the person doesn't pay kofar, then he's chayav misa b'dei shemayim. But how much kofar is? If you know the
Shashor Mishah, kofar, it wouldn't have been nezek shalem. It would have been you're just paying compensation for the person's life because you can evaluate what he was worth, right? But this is kofar. This is different than because Shashor Mishalem et kofar. Am I splitting hairs? I'm not being too because.
Okay, so what you can do is you can Google kofar while I'm just going on, and then you could see exactly how kofar is paid. Okay.
Give me the homework, Rabbi. Thank you.
I'll give you yes, on your second computer. Okay. No, you could do it. No, you could do it. It's you look up Wiki and see how kofar is paid.
Okay. No, because there's a big difference. I wouldn't have thought that would, especially uses a separate word. So.
No, it's very good because nezek shalem, you see, there's a difference between damage and death when it comes to a human being. When it comes to an animal, there's no difference between that. You have to pay with just an animal just what he's worth. So that's nezek shalem, or that's a nezek if he's a tam. But But kofar is special than with human beings. But okay, you can Google it on the second computer. We'll get back to it. V'chayev b'shloshim shel eved. If the shore kills an eved, you have to pay shloshim shkalim. Okay. Now there's another difference with shore, that when they bring the Baal to the Beis Din, if they bring him 3 times and he hasn't watched his animal, then the animal has to be stoned. You have to kill the animal. Actually, on the first time when he kills a human being, we have to kill him also. The animal, once he's a killer of human beings, we don't want him around. But when the animal has been convicted, I mean, when the animal doesn't have free will, but I mean, the owner's animal has been sentenced to skila. So from that point on, from the time of the conviction, then the owner cannot get any benefit from the animal. Okay, so he can't shech the animal and eat it for lunch. Okay, why should we stone it? I'll just shech my animal, nice, and I don't know. We can't. The minute the Beis Din says that the animal has to be slaughtered, there's no more benefit. He can't get it. He can't sell it. He can't. Of course, he can't eat it before either. Okay, before now. Then another thing. This is how the Sifri learns that also the shore is lelech lahazik, and the bore isn't. Meaning, the shore is an adamant object, right? It moves. The word animal comes to the word movement, animal, animated. Okay, and the bore is passive. So that's another chum. If I only would have written, if the Torah only would have written shore, I would say, well, you only have to pay for items that move. But since the bore is totally passive, I would have said you don't have to pay. So because of that, the Torah was forced to write also the din of bore. Okay, so that's the first part of the permutation, that a shore is not like a bore. The second part of the permutation is that a bore is not like a shore. The opposite. That's called the converse. Okay, how is that? If the Torah would have written bore, I would have said, no. There's a side to say that bore is actually more strict than shore. What side is that? We said it's passive, it's not active. Shahabor techilas asiyasol and nezek. Once a person digs a pit, the minute he finishes that hole, he has created a dangerous item. But when a shore is born and after he grows up, he's not dangerous. He's called a tom. He could potentially become dangerous, but at the moment, for a long period of time, he's considered a passive animal until he acts up 3 times, and we have to call in the Beis Din and make him a muad. So I would have said no. The shore is something that's so bad that from its very inception, it's going to hurt people. So maybe that's the one you're chayav. And the shore, since there's a lot of time where we don't know what he is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but maybe he'll just be a nice little boy and never go to the principal, and it'll be okay. So I would say you're putter on shore. You wouldn't have to pay. The other thing that a bore has that shore doesn't is the concept of muad mitachila. So with a bore, the minute you make the bore, you have to pay nezek shalom, full damages. But with the shore, you have 3 times to pay half damages. On the 4th time, you pay full damages. So that's another chumrah that bore has. It's not only dangerous from its inception, but it pays nezek shalom right away. So therefore, I would say things that are not dangerous from the exception, like a shore, or don't pay nezek shalom right away, like a tom, like the shore, that would be pater. Okay, so that's the case and its converse. So I just wrote here just A, B, and BA just to symbolize that the shore is more chumrah than the bore, and the bore is more chumrah than the shore. Okay, let's go to the next case. Now we have chumrah b'shor mi ba'esh. Now we're going to compare the shore to the Aish and show that the shore is more chumrah than the Aish, but in the converse, the Aish is more chumrah than the shore. So let's see how that works out. Okay, so Chumrah Bashor Shebeish. What are the chumras that the shore had? If they were written, I would say, "Ooh, that's much more strict. They should be butter." Shashor Mishalam et Kofer, that we mentioned before. It has that din of Kofer. Aish doesn't have Kofer. Chaya Bishloshim Shel Eved. The shore also pays 30 shekels for the Eved. And Nigmar Dino Asabahano, as we said, and also the shore. Once the din is passed, there's no more benefit that can be derived. And here's the case that we were just bringing before, which we're going to investigate. What happens if you hand over the shore to a cheresh shot of a cup? Chayav. That's what we learned last session. If you give over the shore to these three incompetents, then if the shore does damage, you're chayav. Mashain came be'esh. Yes, that's exactly what we learned. But if you give the same three incompetent people an esh, then you will not be chayav. So this piece is where there's going to be a intersection between what we're learning in this Beraisa and our piece, which we just learned last week. Okay, but we'll hold off on that for a second. What's the converse? Chomer be'esh shebeshor. There's a chomer in Eish that shor doesn't have. What's the chomer of Eish? If Eish was written, Sha'eish mu'ades mitachila. So the Eish also pays Nezek Shalem right from the beginning. There's no Tom state. Masha Ein Kain Bashur. In the shore, you have 3 times where you pay half damages. And then only in the 4th time does he graduate to be a full-fledged damager, and you pay Nezek Shalem. Okay. Now let's see the converse. So this was the Eish is more no, not the converse. That was the converse. So now let's do the last of this series. Chumrah be'eish mi babor. Now we're going to say that the eish is more chumrah than the bor, and the converse also will be true, that there's a chumrah in bor mi be'eish. That if given bor, I would have said eish would be patur because bor is more chumrah. Let's see how that spells out. Chumrah babor shebeish. How is bor more chumrah, more strict than eish? Shetachila sasir. So yeah, the bor from its inception is dangerous. Okay. If the minute you do that last hole, that last digging, you've made a dangerous object. But the eish is not dangerous unless the wind comes and someone moves to another area. It is dangerous not where it is. It has to be moved by the wind, or someone has to take it somewhere else. But it's not by definition dangerous to others in the place where it is. It's in my own little home, in my little with my little stones around it, or without the stone, then I'm watching it. It's fine. It's only when the wind comes or someone comes and fans that flame and it moves through my friend's house does it become dangerous. So it doesn't become instantaneously dangerous. It has the potential to be dangerous. Okay,
Rabbi, that's bor b'shus l'rabbi, right?
Bor b'shus l'rabbi, yes, only b'shus l'rabbi. Okay.
Okay, so but the eish, I mean, I'm having a little bit of a hard time with eish because eish is, I would say, it's equivalent to bor because it's immediately dangerous. I know you say a wind or whatever, but eish can burn some.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. We're talking about an eish that a person is in his own domain. Okay.
Yeah.
Or even if it's not in its own domain, well, let's say the easiest case is it's in its own domain. In its own domain, it doesn't do any damage unless someone takes it to a new place, right?
Right.
So in that place, so it you're right. It's much more closer to being immediate than the shore, for instance. Okay, the shore has to walk out of the corral, but also it still needs the wind or someone else to transport it over to this other place in order for it to do damage. So it's not immediately dangerous. It's immediately dangerous. You wouldn't put your hand on a fire, that's for sure. We're not talking.
Right, but wouldn't you say?
We're talking about when it does damage. There's a time split between its creation and its delivery. Yeah, what do you want to say?
So wouldn't you say that's the same as the aish is a covered bore? The aish that you haven't moved is the same as a covered bore, right?
So we're not talking about a covered bore. A covered bore is not considered dangerous. The only time a bore is considered the minute
aish not considered dangerous either until you
yes,
move.
But the analogy is between aish and an uncovered.
Okay, we know that for sure.
Yes, 100%. There's no doubt about it. That's when it's covered, it's not at all damage, except this new din that Rashi made up. You have to come back and check it all the time. But as long as it was covered, then you don't have to pay. That's
okay. So in other words, it's passive, and you don't have to. It's uncovered. It's an immediate danger, and then you're saying the fire. You actually have to do something with the fire to
move it.
A movement or wind, or there's got to be an agent that makes the fire dangerous.
Exactly. The agent has to carry it to the place of damage.
I got it. Okay.
The bore needs nothing else. It's an open pit. It needs nothing else to do its dangerous work.
Yeah.
But the fire needs another force to move it over to the place of damage.
The one's immediately dangerous, and the other one is potentially dangerous.
Exactly.
Thank you. Sorry to split the head, but yeah.
No. Very good. Very good.
I actually got the answer on warfare, but we could do that later.
Okay. So now let's just do the last one. There's also a chumrah and aish that bore doesn't have. That's interesting. Why? The aish has animation associated with it, right? And the bore doesn't. The bore is a passive damager. People fall into it. But an aish is an active damager. It's true that it needs the wind or someone to carry it, but when it does its damage, it goes out to the other place and it immediately does its damage. Whereas the bore can only sit where it is and people can fall into it. Okay, so on the side of the type of damage it does, the aish is able to go out and do damage, and the bore is very passive. It can just sit there waiting for someone to fall into it. So that's a chumrah of aish, and therefore I might have said, maybe if I used aish as my classical example, I would say, well, wait a minute, aish has movement. A bore is very passive. So if you think about the potential of damage of an aish, it can go very, very far. Whereas the bore is very limited. So I'd say maybe if aish is written, you get only aish should be chayav and bore maybe not so. And the other thing is that the aish is muid le'echol ben hara'ui lo uben she'ein ra'ui lo ma she'ein kein b'bor. We're going to have to investigate this also what this means. But simply speaking, an aish burns or destroys everything. Let's say ra'ui lo would be wood, right? The common expected damage that aish would do is to burn up some wood. Okay, but aish is also chayav if it burns stones, right? Let's say you have some beautiful nice wall, and someone lights an aish next to the wall. It darkens and destroys all the stones, so you have to pay for that damage. Okay, so even things which are not going to be consumed by the aish can be damaged by the aish. Okay, but the bore, then we'll have to discuss. We're going to see that the bore is not chayav on everything. It has a limited liability, according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to the Chachamim, it's not chayav on kalim. Okay, we're going to get into that. Now, what I just want to show you is that we have here three possibilities And the Gemara has stated the three combinations in these three possibilities. So I have this little diagram that I made. This is the simple way of doing it before Rabbi Huda will teach us factorials. Okay, so if we have here our three variables in this Beraisa, right? Shore, bore, and Aish, correct? And they can be more chumrah than the shore, bore, and Aish. And the opposite could also be true. That will be the converse. So if we do our little chart here, we can knock out shore is not more chumrah than shore. That doesn't make any sense. And bore is not more chumrah than bore, and Aish is not more chumrah than Aish. So on our chart here, we can knock out these intersections, correct? Okay. So we're left with 6 possibilities here. So how does the Beraisa present itself? The Beraisa says, first of all, pick shore, then it moves to bore, and then it moves to Aish, correct? That's what it did. The first series was the shore, and then it moved to the, let's see, it said the shore is greater than the bore is greater than the shore. Then it said the bore is greater, then it said the shore is greater than the Aish, and the Aish is greater than the shore, and then it did the last possibility of the Aish greater than the bore. So the way that the Beraisa set up its statement is first to take the two variations of shore, the intersection of shore with these other two variations, i.e. the shore versus the bore. So I put the bore here in a superscript, right? That's the shore versus the bore, and the shore versus the Aish. So those are the two ones that it picked. And once we have the shore versus the bore, so we can, the Beraisa does the converse, which is the bore versus the shore. Are you with me? So you can have the chumrah of the shore over the bore, and the converse is the chumrah of the bore over the shore. Next, the Beraisa went to the shore and the Aish. Okay, and it said that the shore is more chumrah than the Aish, and the Aish is more chumrah than the shore. So we did the green and the yellow. Now there's only two, after we finished talking about the shore and its combinations and its converse, then we went to the Aish and the bore, which is the last intersection. And it said that the Aish is more chumrah than the shore, and the Aish is more chumrah than the bore. Is that right? No. We didn't do that. It said the Aish is more chumrah than the bore, and the bore is more chumrah than the Aish. It was this quadrant that the last quadrant, the blue quadrant that it did, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, what I said, most people don't think about these things. Okay. But I like to talk about not only content but process. How does the Torah Shabbat pair compress information here? Okay, if you have 3 variables here, the shore, the bore, and the Aish, so how many combinations can you have? So the formula, as we remember from high school mathematics, I guess algebra or something, I don't know when they taught that to us, is you have 3 items, so it's called 3 factorial, right? So that means, I'm doing it. It means, I've done it 3 times. Okay, 3 times 1. No, I didn't do this right. It's 3 times 2 times 1, because I did it the right direction, right? The fact 3 factorial is 3 times 2 and 1. I know it's written this way. Is that right? 3 factorial. You remember that, Barry? You never used it in your life, but that's how you do a factorial. So 3 times 2 times 1 is 6 altogether. So there's 6 combinations of 2's when you have 3 variations. And that's exactly what we saw, right? 1, 2, 3, 6 combinations, okay? Now, the question is, how do you present that when you're speaking it out? You're not going to write A's and B's. You're actually the Beraisa is talking about concrete cases. How does it present itself? So what it does is it first talks about the 2 possibilities in shore, meaning the shore versus the bore and the shore versus the aish. So it starts with the shore and gives both its direct statement and its converse. You with me? That's the shore versus the bore, and its converse, the bore versus the aish, and the shore versus the aish, and the aish versus the shore. So it starts, its main category is shore, okay? Then when it exhausts shore, it then goes to the leftover category, which is not included in the shore converse. Are you with me? And that's the aish and the bore. Okay. So what I thought was fascinating here is that, of course, we're talking about the permutations, and we have 6, but there's 2 points here. One, the method that the Gemara presents these combinations. Okay. So it starts with the shore and then goes to the bore and then goes to the aish. Why does it do that? Because that is the initial setup of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that there's Arba Avos Nesikin, leaving out the Mava, we have shore, bore, and aish. That's the order of our Mishnah. The only thing our Mishnah did was put the Mava next to the shore, okay? But as far as the organization, we went shore, bore, and aish, okay? And that's the same order that the Beraisa is continuing. Shore, bore, and aish. And then when we exhaust the shore and its combinations, right? We did the shore and the bore and the shore and the aish. What's left over is this non-shore box, right? Which is the aish and the bore. And that's what it does last. So here in my example here, I said we have AB and BA, that's the shore and the bore and the shore. Then AC, which is the shore and the aish and the aish and the shore. And then the one that's left over is the aish and the bore, okay, and the bore and the aish. But which way did we decide, or which way did the Beraisa decide, which one of these 2 did it decide to write first? So it wrote the aish and the bore first. So I said, why is that? Why did it could have taken the bore and the shore, and then the bore and the aish, and then flipped it around. So what I observed is, since we left off in our delineation of the permutations with the aish and with the aish and the, that's AC. Let's see, AB and BA, that's the shore and the bore. Good. AC and CA, that's right. Since we started talking about the aish's relationship to the shore, so we continued with the shore's with the aish's relationship to the bore to fix the last intersection. Was that clear at all, Rebuta? What I'm trying to do is explain how the Beraisa is extremely systematic in its presentation of the permutations. Okay, and it starts with shore because that's the first one in the Mishnah, and it goes from shore to bore and bore to shore and shore to Aish, which is exactly the format of the Mishnah. When it came to this last set, which does not involve the shore, right? So it could have done either Aish first or bore first. Why did it do Aish first? Because it left off with the Aish. Okay, that's what I'm trying to point out, that there is a systematic presentation of the information. Not only does it cover all the bases, but it does so in a way that is very organized. And that's why even subliminally, people can learn Mishnayos very, very well, very, very easily. Of course, a lot of information, but it flows into the mind because it's highly, highly structured. And the mind is naturally structured, even though it may not be consciously structured. So that's why the information flows so well into the mind. But the beauty, step number one, is to realize that from the original slide, how is so much information encoded in the Chumash? You see? And it's encoded through these systems. And once you see the system here, then whenever you're going to see now a multiple of 2, 3, or 4 even, you can always now predict the system that's going to be used. Okay. So like I said, most people don't look at this. Most people don't look at the process. But I enjoy looking at the process because once you understand the process here, then whenever you have permutations, you'll be able to understand the system. Now, the second part is that this is not only mathematics and a very clean way, a streamlined way of presenting the information, but there's also content involved, meaning there's a message behind the streamlining, meaning that if I had one of these pasukim, I would not know the others. And that information now is given to us through, again, this table, by showing us what are the chumras of the shore over the bore over the shore, the shore over the aish over the shore, and the aish over the bore. So we're not only learning information in a very, very sleek and profound way, but we're also filling in a very important understanding, meaning why did the Mishnah, what's the Mishnah's problem? The Mishnah's problem is that Hashem seems to be wasting words. He could have given us one case of damage, and we could have derived those other 3 cases from the given case. Comes along the Beraisa and explains it's not true, because no matter which one of the 4 you would have taken, you would have come up with a Humra and say it's not mukhrach, it's not necessarily true that that law would go down to the other cases, because those laws have a side in them that is lenient. Okay, so that's what it's a very unusual class today, because again, most people are just involved in content, but I just wanted to show that the process here is very important.
Yeah. So
okay, go ahead.
Rafael,
Yes, please.
Can I just propose something? I think one of the reasons it's so structured and formulaic is, remember, this was Torah Sheba'al Peh. This all had to be memorized. If you didn't have, if you had a mishmash, it went from aish to shore to and back and forth. If you didn't have a structured way to think it through, you'd start losing it. Because once it's structured, you went, the chumrah of one to the other.
Exactly.
I think that
the Torah was built that the Torah Sheba'al Peh would be transmitted over time, and the information would not be lost and would be valid. And one of the ways they do it is through this highly structural, not only is it easy to memorize, but it maintains its structure. It's like you have, I don't know, a molecule. The structure itself builds a locked-in system that you'll be able not only to memorize, but you'll be able to unpack the information and understand the material within it. It's quite amazing. It's miraculous. It's really part of the great, and that's why I started off with that first citation from Rashi, and he says all the 613 mitzvahs are compressed into the 10 statements of the Kodesh Baruch. Now, how are you going to unpack that information? You have to be on the top of the analog computer in order to do that. But Rashi says of that, you see, and that's really the way that the Torah works. That's the way the details and the parameters are produced by understanding the upper levels and by producing geometry, trigonometry. We used to talk about when you find interpolation, it was called, right? Interpolation. By producing the right foundations, then we can interpolate in between the lines and produce all the other variations. And that's remarkable. There is just no text like this. I mean, you could think of mathematical text, that's fine. But what are we doing? We're just doing math. But here, we're talking about a system of understanding the 613 mitzvahs. Of course, it's much greater than that, because as according to Zohar, the whole world can be founded. Now, I'm too small to know physics, and I can't see physics in the Torah, but I'm sure someone could find on the code surface of Yoda, Einstein, or whatever, or 32 seconds per second of Newton, you see. But we're not privy to that level of information. The information that we've been holding on to is the important the mitzvahs that we can do. Even a lot of the mitzvahs that unfortunately for the last 2,000 years we couldn't do, like in the Beis Hamikdash or in Talmud Torah, they have not been worked on so that the true depth of all those details are with us. When we get to Beis Hamikdash, we're going to have to use Talmidei Chachamim, go back into those areas. I think the Chavetz Chaim, he felt that the Mashiach was so much on the way that he was a Kohen. He would learn all the mitzvahs of the Kohen to be prepared. So they're all there, and they can all be unpacked. Maybe it'll take some supercomputers, or it'll just take some super individuals to get together and to unpack the information. But to realize that the information is encoded is a very important lesson, and we see this here. Now, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask. So, what Rashi is saying, he is saying that the Aseret Dibrot, the 10 Commandments, all the 613 mitzvot are a subset of those 10. Is that what
correct?
That's how you unpack it. So each one, if you had to look like your charts, you could take 613 and put them all, and they would all wrap up to
exactly. Now, please don't ask me to do it. Rashi said, "Let him do it." I can't do it. That's for sure. But in principle, my little charts go so far. But isn't that an amazing principle? And it's Rashi. It's not me talking. Oh, I'd like to make an exciting class. That's Rashi himself. I mean, Rashi says that. I didn't say it.
But did Rashi know that? I mean, did Rashi have that chart in his head? I mean, he must have, right?
I don't know how much Rashi knew. I can't even what he wrote. I can hardly understand what he wrote down half the time. But what he knew is, I don't know. Maybe he could do it. You know, but that's a hidden secret of Torah. You see, people think that it's just a nice little folk story, a tale about, oh yeah, how the world was created, and we went into Egypt. It's nice storyline, and then it gets a little complicated with all these laws of the Kahuna and Vayikra. But people don't understand the greatness of the Torah. They have no idea. I mean, this makes Einstein it doesn't even exist. He's not even the dirt on a fingernail in one of the Talmud. As far
it's
as
the ultimate
the ultimate zipkar from the Creator Himself. That is overwhelming, but that's what it is. Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us this document. How could we treat it very nicely? We put it in the Aron Kodesh, or we cover it. But how many people really know how great that document is? Very few people. I think, Talmidei Chachamim, they learn, they see the greatness, the breadth, because all the learning is only to bring out the specific parameters that are there. And they can't be made up. It has to be from Hashem. No one says, this is what I want the mitzvah to look like. We'll have pizza on Pesach instead of matzah. That can't be. We have to know the definitions from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. To do that, you have to know the systems that will produce the exact parameters of time and place. That's fantastic. And we're dealing in a very, on one hand, practical, I would say, on the surface, it doesn't seem to be very spiritual, when it's not Tumah and Torah, and not based on Migdash and Karbonos, it's very practical, Ben Adam Lechavaro. But look how much depth is here. Okay, look how much depth is encoded in these few little words, and how much knowledge is encoded. I mean, who knows about permutations? You know what I mean? They'll probably say that someone in 1856 found how to write a formula for permutation. I don't know who the first one was. It's very, 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 very recent that the guy woke up to permutations. This is the Torah already. It knew about permutations and how to use them and how to encode information in the zip file. Wow. Phew. Anyway, but now let's get practical. More down to earth a little. And down to earth will be that after we have the Beraisa, we have to go back to our Gemara. And the Gemara now is not happy just to be wowed by the Torah, wowed by the Beraisa. The Gemara are big people now, and they want to unpack the information. So let's see what the Gemara does with this Beraisa, okay? All right. So the Gemara says, very nice, beautiful zip file of these three avo. But the Gemara says, Lisnei Homer B'Shor Shibabor. There should have been another chumrah that the shore has a bore. You see here, the only chumrah, let's see, chumrah B'Shor Mi Be chumrah B'Shor here. Okay, this first one, right? So we said the chumrah that the shore has is that it pays kofar shloshim shel eved asa bahano, and it's darkened by lahazik. Says the Gemara, they should have said there's another chumrah that shore has overboard. Shehashor chayav bo et hakelim. Okay, the shore. So we should have had another one over here that said here. Okay, let's just put it there. Why not? Okay. It should have said there's another chumrah, and that's that the shore, if kalim fall into the shore, right? This one is not written. It should have been written. It's the kasha of the Gemara. Let me just make that clear so no one has any mistake there.
Is there one of the combinations of time? Is
Yes.
there one of the combinations? Do we address that combination?
We do. The first one was the chumrah of shore. The shore has a chumrah of bor, right?
Right.
We addressed it. We said the shore is more chumrah because it pays kofar, it pays shloshim shel eved, and it's asa b'hano, and it's dark and like a hazik. Comes along the Gemara and says, wait a minute, there's another one that should be written here, and it's not.
That was it. Yeah,
And
the first one.
So the shore is more chumrah because if the shore walks on kalim, right? I mean, the owner has to pay. That's regular, right?
Right.
But if an animal falls into a pit, the animal gets injured, and the packages that he was carrying, they had a lot of kalim there, so he doesn't pay for the kalim. Okay, that's
Is
So
it
we
an
make-
animal? If a person, if a person falls in and he's got his kalim with him,
Oh,
you
no,
don't pay for the kalim.
let's not talk about the person. That's going to be another problem. Because,
Okay. Well, I believe that one out. Yeah, sorry.
because it says shor below bor, v'chamor
Mhm.
below kalim. If you remember the Pesukim
Mhm.
a long time ago,
Yes.
it said when a shor or a chamor falls into a pit.
Yeah.
That's the pasuk says. So that's extra language. We're just talking about shor all
Right.
the time. Why all of a sudden we added shor and chamor? So the Gemara says shor means you're chayav on a shor, but not an adam. An adam's supposed to watch where he's walking.
Looking. Yeah.
And a chamor you're chayav on, but the kalim on the chamor you're not chayav on.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Gemara says, wait a minute, that's very nice packing, but you left something out here. You didn't say that the shore is chayav on kalim and the bor is not. Clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that
So why
clear
did
about
you
it?
leave it out?
Why did they? Well, how come it's left out? You're writing all the chumras of one or the other. You left out a very important chumrah that sure has overboard.
Yeah.
Right? So what does the Gemara answer? So the Gemara says, "Listen, chumash hashor chayavo et kelim mashe ein kain babor." So the Gemara answers, "It must be whose shita, whose system is being expressed here. It's Rebbe Yehuda, and who's a Tana, and Rebbe Yehuda is machayev niske kelim on board. He disagrees with the Rabbanan. And he says that you actually have to pay not only for the donkey, but the kalim on the donkey. You with me? Okay.
And that makes sense because you caused the damage.
Oh, okay, but remember it's logical, but we have a shore, but we have a whole drush of it. Okay, but we're saying how does the Gemara but you see, here's another thing that I want to bring up to you. See, I'm trying to highlight the process. My Rebbe always used to talk about conscious learning, which means not only are you focused on the content, but you have to look about the process of how the content was created. So here we're saying the Gemara says, look, there's something left out. It's not learning from what's written, it's learning from what's not written. Okay, like we said, how come Mav is left out? We were learning from what's not written. So here the Gemara says, wait a minute. There's another chumrah that's not written of shore over bor, which is that the shore is chayav on the kalim and the bor is not, right? So the Gemara answers, it must be that this Mishnah is who? Is Reb Yehuda. Okay? And Reb Yehuda argues with the Chachamim, and he says that you're chayav on it. Okay? Excuse me. You put them on board, okay? Rabbi Yehuda holds. Let me see if I can put this in sort of nicely. Okay. So this is the Rabbanan. I'm just right here, just to get it. Rabbanan. Okay. Okay. Now, the Rabbanan hold that you're chayav on kalim, but Rabbi Yehuda holds your putter on kalim. Oh, 1 second, is that right?
No, the other way around.
It's the other way around. It's the other way around.
The other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100%. Rabbi Yehuda says you're machayev on the kalim. All right, and the Rabbanan says you're putter on the kalim. Let me get that.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I go
so
to
the
Rabbi
Rabbanan
Yehuda.
hold here. Just check. Let's send this to Batur, right?
Yeah. Why would the Rabbanim actually say that you potter on kalim? I mean, you caused the guy dead.
Oh,
I mean,
excellent question. Okay, so for that, remember, I have to show you how the zip file is made, right? The zip file is made through hubs and links. Now we have to link to that machlokas of Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda to answer your question. Okay, so that's another link we have to do and to get involved in that. But it's very interesting how the Gemara handles. You see, the Gemara, when it presents the information, it presumes that the Beraisa is the sheet of the Rabbanan, right? It
Right.
presumes, because the Beraisa does not tell us it's a minority opinion. Normally, if it's a minority opinion, you expect that would be stated. Okay, so here the Gemara says, wait a minute, this looks like doesn't line up with the Rabbanan. Okay, because who patra on Kaban. Okay, because they learned that drush shor v'lo bor, shor v'lo adam, and chamor v'lo Kaban. They have a drush. Okay,
Right.
because there's extra words. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with the drush? Okay, so, but they have a drush. It's not that they didn't make it up. It's an extra word. The shore means that the shore is chayav, but Adam falls on the pit not. And the chamor is chayav, but his kalim, the kalim that are on the chamor are not. Okay, so the Gemara presumes that this Mishnah, which is not written in the name of an individual, should be the Rabbanan, but it doesn't work. So the Gemara is forced to say that this text is really Rabbi Yehuda, and he holds that you're obligated on bor, and therefore there's no difference between shor and bor. So the Mishnah works well according to Rabbi Yehuda. You with me?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right. No, that's correct. No, the logic's seamless. Yeah.
Okay. Now the only question is how they learn. So that we'd have to hyperlink over there to that machlokas, and how they learn the drushes and how they argue about it. Fine. Okay. But the Gemara now says is not satisfied. You see, the Gemara says you just can't give me an answer. The answer has to be consistent. So the Gemara now says the following. Wait a minute. Now, you concluded it must be Rabbi Yehuda, right? Very nice. But now, Amos Sefer, let's look at the last part, the end, that said, Chomra mi eish mi babur, right?
Oh, so if we saying, let me ask a quick question, Rav Chaim.
Go ahead, please.
Saying, according to Rav Yehuda, we're saying all the combinations are going to Rav Yehuda.
It has to be. It has to be. You're telling me this mission is Rabbi Yehuda's mission. It has to be. It has to be consistent throughout. Whenever there's no way, and this is another thing in telegraphing communication, there's no way that I would know that this one is Rabbi Yehuda, this one is the Rabbanan, unless you told that to me. You can presume everything is Mithra Rabbanan. Okay, now you're forcing me to accept that it's Rabbi Yehuda, and I have to tell me everything is Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, okay, fine. So the Gemara says, oh, if that's true, let's look at the Aish. Okay, it says it's a Chomer and Aish over bor. Sha'aish darchan lele plahasik. Right, we said Aish is animate, it moves, it's not an animal, but it has motion. But there's another way that the Aish is more Chomer than the bor, because the Aish is Muad l'ochel ben davar ha'ra'ui lo ben davar she'en ra'ui lo. That's what the Mishnah said. I mean, the Beraisa said, correct? That the Aish is muad. That means it pays full damages, whether it damages something that's fitting for it or not fitting for it. So the Gemara says, well, what does it mean? What does it mean, davar ha'ra'ui lo? You see, what does it mean that the Aish is muad for a davar shava'ui law? My ninhu, what does that mean? Oh, it must mean eitzim, right? Okay, it must mean that the Aish you have to pay if wood, which is the natural fuel for Aish, is destroyed. You have to pay. So then what does it mean, davar she'ein ra'ui lo? What's something that's not fitting for a fire? What do you mean? Everything is fitting for a fire. Well, it must mean something that's not its natural fuel. What is that? Must mean kalim, right? Kalim are not so if a fire burnt up someone's kalim, right? Someone's pots, and it got all blown up and black and everything. So you'd say, okay, Aish is chayev, whether it was something that Aish normally destroys, which is wood, burns up, or even things that Aish normally doesn't destroy, like Caleb. We bought for Shabbos must be Pyrex, a glass vessel that you can keep your incense warm. So that's a chiddush. Normally you put glass on hot stove, it's going to blow up, right? So it must be Pyrex. I hope it is. Okay, but normally fire doesn't destroy vessels. It consumes fuel. So here, by making this distinction and saying fire destroys things which are fuel and not fuel, we must be talking about kalim. So if the kalim were burnt in a fire, you'd have to pay. Okay, but now you're saying that would not be true of bore. Bore would only be fitting for Re'ui, and not what's not Re'ui for the bore would not fall in. So what can we say? What's something double Re'ui for a bore? Eitzim, because we have to excuse me, I'm sorry here. Masha'en came b'bor. Okay, excuse me. Okay, Masha'en came b'bor, right? So it must mean that the bore is not chayav on kalim, right? Because it's only chayav on wood and not kalim. If we bring down the same variables, right, from the aish, and we say it's chayav for re'ui lo, which means eitzah, and ein re'ui lo, which is kalim, and we say that's not true about bor, it must mean that bor is only chayav on one and not the other. Meaning it's chayav on eitzim and it's not chayav on kalim. But wait a minute. Rebbe Yehuda, or Martha Machayev, or Rebbe Yehuda.
Can you just go back? Can you just go back on the question?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not understanding.
Okay, yeah. Good. Let's go slow. Let's go slow.
Yeah, are we in bore right now?
We're comparing Aish to bor. Okay. We're saying there's a chumrah in Aish that bor doesn't have, right? Which means bor is chayav on two things and Aish is not chayav on two things. Are you with me?
Right.
Okay. What is Aish? So what does that mean? Aish is chayav on wood and on kalim. That means it's natural combustion, fuel, or
the thing. Kalim is made out of pottery. Why would it be
exactly?
A fuel?
No, it's not exactly.
But you said
not. The Aish now. Aish, you have to pay for Aish whether it's wood or it's kalim.
Right.
Meaning wood is the natural combustible item for a fire.
Right.
And it must mean that when the Beraisa said you're even kind of on the unnatural things, it must mean if kalim fell in.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's Aish. Aish, you're chayav on its natural fuel and this unnatural product called kalim. Nothing to do with it.
Right.
It doesn't normally eat up kalim. I mean, it can burn kalim, but it's not you associate. It's not normal. So here's a big chiddush that Aish is chayav even on not normal things, right? Good, like kalim. So if that's true, then we have to look at the extension, the bor, which is not true of bor, right? So it must mean that bor also, let's just do the substitution, right? That bor is chayav on eitzim, but it's not chayav on kalim.
Okay, right.
Okay, if we do a substitution, right?
Yeah, if we do substitution, then you go hit, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how bor is chayav on eitzim anyway, but that's another story. Anyway, but if you say that, you have a problem with Rebbe Yehuda because Rebbe Yehuda is machayev. You just told me Rebbe Yehuda is machayev for kalim on bor, so it doesn't work out.
Why doesn't it work out? I'm just trying to understand. So you said kalim, and you're saying that
we said that what happens in Aish does not happen in bor, correct?
Right. So in Aish, if I can explain it, in Aish,
you're
Both
chayav
the
on both.
both unnatural and natural fuels.
But in
But
bor, it must
you're
be
not.
that you're only
That
chayav on one and not the other, right?
on the one that's naturally will go for, but the things that are natural to break in bor, like eitzim, well, that would be.
Now, you're falling into the bor, which is very good. No, it's very good. No, you're actually very good with the saying, because it doesn't make sense. But this is what the Gemara is saying.
Right.
Okay, first let's get what the Gemara is saying. Okay,
Yeah.
When we're talking about the H, right? I'm just going to write H here, right? Oops, that's no good. Let's do here. Here's the H, right? So it's chayav, we just said, on eitzim, right?
Need one of your special charts for our kind.
Yeah, well, that's the chart, man. Okay, it's on eitzim, and it's also chayav on kelim. That's what you told me. You told me, what does it mean, ru'i law, not ru'i law? That the Aish is chayav on both, right? But then it says masha ein kain babor, meaning the bor is not chayav on both, right?
Right.
Right. So that means when it comes to bor, if we just do the substitution, okay, in the bor, we're going to say,
Kalim.
we're going to say here, this is what we're going to say here.
And you'll scratch 18. You'll just line through it. Yeah.
Oops, wrong place. What happened over there?
This is according to Rabbi Yehuda, right?
No, the Gemara is saying, look, you told me the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, right?
Right.
Correct? If it's Rabbi Yehuda, let's read what it says about Aish and Bor, right? It says Aish is chayav on both, correct?
Right.
And Bor is only chayav on one.
Kalim.
Which one is it chayav on? Must be it's chayav on eitzim. It's chayav on eitzim, but it's a sputter on kalim, correct?
Exactly. Correct.
That's through a substitution. But we have a problem because you just told me the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda is chayav on kalim, not putter on kalim, so it doesn't work.
But we're saying that the Mishnah, the
Beraisa, I'm sorry. The Beraisa, if you're telling me you told me the Beraisa must be Rabbi Yehuda because he's putter b'kalim. That was your first teretz, right?
Right.
Okay. So, you told me, but now it won't work because if it's Rabbi Yehuda, you're telling me he's chayav on kalim, correct? You told me he's chayav on kalim,
correct? And he's chayav on and he says also Aish is chayav on kalim. So what's inconsistent?
But it said the text said Aish is chayav also on kalim, but it says that's not true of
Bor.
It's not true of Bor.
Right.
That means Bor should be putter. According to the text.
No, Bor should be. Well, yeah, Kalim and Bor should be potter, right? And that's what it says, right? Oh, the text says it's Yuchayah on Kalim. That's right.
No, let's go again.
No, I'm missing it.
No. It's very subtle. The text.
The rabbis say it is not chayav. Rabbi Yehuda says it is.
Right.
Right.
So then how can this text be Rabbi Yehuda? Because this text says that the Aish is chayav on both, and the Bor is putter on the Kalim.
And yeah, thanks, Barry.
And Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayav on the Kalim.
Okay, yeah.
So
thank
you fell into the pit.
Simple. I fell in the pit. Thank you.
It's not so simple. Okay, when you think about it, it's not so. I mean, technically it's simple, but how is it? Okay, I want to get involved. We have to get involved. How is Eitzim fit for Bor? I don't understand.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand. Eitzim fit for Bor. Okay. Anyway, whatever it is, we're just going through the first time. Ella. So now the Gemara has to backtrack. Since we can't say it's Rebbe Yehuda, because Rebbe Yehuda is very nice, the first part of the Mishnah, but the Beraisa, but the second part, it doesn't work out because he's Mechayev and you're telling me it's not. We have to go back and say, La'olam, it's the Rabbanan. If it's the Rabbanan, we said, how come that it left out a very important principle of Rabbanan, that you're here, whoops, what did I do? Here, if it's the Rabbanan, it should have said that you're Pater on Canaan, if it's the Rabbanan. It didn't say that.
Chaya.
It said the Chumrah B'Shor, Mibabor. It should have said the Shor is Chayev on Kalim, like the Regel, and it should have said the Rabbanan is Pater on Kalim. We're stuck. It can't be Rebbe Yehuda because Rebbe Yehuda is Mechayev Kalim. Down there, when we talked about Eish, it said that the Eish is Chayev on both, and Bor is not. Bor is not Chayev on Kalim when it went to that part of the Beraisa. So it can't be Rebbe Yehuda. But it can't be the Rabbanan either, because the Rabbanan, if it's the Rabbanan, how come they didn't say there's another Chumrah in Shor that over Bor that the Shor is Chayev on Kalim and that the Bor is Pater on Kalim? We're back to the original question. So how does the Gemara answer? It's forced to answer with a new principle. What's the new principle? The new principle is called Tana V'Shai. Tana V'Shai. We're going to learn a new principle today. Tana V'Shai. Okay? What does Tana V'Shai mean? Tana V'Shai means that when a Mishnah writes a list or a Beraisa, when Tanaim write lists, if there are a whole bunch of items, then it doesn't have to write all the items out. But if there's only one item, they'll always put it in. Is that clear? Tana V'Shai means that Tana, when there's more than one, when there's two or more things in a list, he may leave them out. He doesn't have to write all the things down. That's Tana V'Shai, okay? And here, what the Tana did was he left out the case of Bor. It left out the case of that the Bor is that the Shor is Chayev on Kalim and the Bor is Pater on Kalim. The Tana is allowed to do that. But we have a rule: when the Tana leaves, will never leave just one thing out. If it's a long list, it has to be more than two or more things that he leaves out. So the Gemara says, so wait a minute, if this is a long list and not an exhaustive list, then there has to be something more left out than just the part of the Kalim. So maybe we'll stop here and we'll pick this up next time. Okay, but what I'm trying to introduce you to, you see, is real Gemara learning. You see, and to understand both the process and the content and the rules. This way, when you do a Gemara properly and you master what's going on in a Gemara that you're doing, then when you come to other Gemaras, you will see the same systems being applied. And if there's a change, you'll know, well, wait a minute, I read on page 9b that this is the system, and now I have a new system over here. What's going on? That's what the big people are doing. The big people, not the people that say, well, that's my Mishnah, but the big people are learning the system and then learning the rules, and then when they get to another Gemara, expecting to find the same rules applied, and if they're not, they'll raise an objection and then try to explain what finer detail has to be inserted to make the system work. It's rather amazing. What can I tell you? This is the Gemara. It's amazing. This is Torah Shabbat. This is Hashem's Torah. It's the unpacking of information and the validation of the information through. You can't just unpack it. When you unpack it, it has to be valid throughout the system. Now, we're very small, so how much do we see? But at least we can observe how the system works. And that's very, very, very important. Okay, so we'll go back into this and spell it out more and ask at difficulties. Like I said, well, what do you mean eights? I don't understand. Eights falls into a boy, it breaks a boy. That's okay. We have to get into those details. Or you want to get a little more into that locus between Rebbe Yehuda and the Chachamim. But that's the way it goes. The system is amazing because you begin from a raw understanding of the material, and then the material becomes more and more refined as you understand the interreactions with the other pieces that are around it. Okay, that's the way the system works, and it's very, very, very exciting. Okay, so we'll stop here. I'll ask for any. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but we'll